Hello lovely people, and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a really special unboxing from one of my favourite deck creators. It's also a deck that I got sent by Blue Angel, so I'm incredibly thankful to Blue Angel to send me this and give me a chance to review the deck. And I've been working with it for a month, and it is by one of my favourite deck creators. It's the Mystique of Magdalene Oracle, and look at the box with the shiny gold writing on it. Absolutely fantastic. Created by the amazing artist Cheryl Yambrach Rose. Now, I have said that I have a fascination with the work of Cheryl Yambrach Rose, and it was from the time when I first visited Glastonbury and had the most magical, energetic experience within the Chalicewell Gardens that left me floored in the middle of the Chalicewell Gardens with my feet in the streams, in tears. Immediately from that experience, I went into the shop and I got pulled to this deck. This was the first deck that I ever got of Cheryl Yambrach Rose, and it led to this deck as well. These are two older versions. This deck has also been made by Blue Angel, and I also have it in that version as well. So you can see these three decks were all bought with my own money, and I love them. I love the artwork of Cheryl Yambrach Rose, so we're going to start with that first, because sometimes her artwork can be a stumbling block, and I don't think it should be, and I want to explain why. You can see on the front of this box some of the issues that some people have with the artwork. You either love it or you don't get it. You can see we've got the tour, Glastonbury. She's Glastonbury based, so the Isle of Avalon, the legends of Glastonbury, they all feature really strongly in her artwork. But we can also see portals opening and spacecraft coming through and strange figures and like beehives and all sorts of things featuring in her artwork. However, she is a artist that works with channeled imagery and channeled messages, so it doesn't surprise me that some of the images that she's pulled to draw and to paint might not necessarily be exactly what you're expecting, because sometimes the messages aren't exactly what you would expect. And I know, because I've often done channeled art myself. Add to that, when you read her guidebooks and her writing, you will begin to understand just how incredibly well versed and well read and interested in all things spiritual Cheryl Yambrach Rose is. Her body of knowledge around place and magical history, spiritual texts, she's got a very broad, very deep base of knowledge that she's drawing from. To pull a card from one of these decks and to read the guidebook, I have found no matter what deck I'm working with, I pull a card and then the entry from the guidebook for that one card will say last me for a week of googling and, well, what's that and what's that she's referencing. And it's almost like portals opening for your own spiritual knowledge. And she combines that all together in channeled art that starts with the eyes. She said that she paints with the eyes first, and the messages begin to come through the eyes to her, and then she paints them into her imagery. She's got a very clear, stylistic, artistic voice. And it does lead to all sorts of strange things. You've got different cultures represented. You've got very pagan imagery. You've got very Christian imagery as well. You've got myths represented, mythical creatures, star seeds and UFOs, Glastonbury, the legends of Arthur. It all kind of melds together, which is often called a kitchen sink spirituality, where it all comes in together. But I think that it is more than just a kitchen sink deck with it all chucked in, because it's coming through the voice of channeled art, and for me that's very close to my own heart and my own work. And I think combined with the guidebook, you begin to feel the message Cheryl conveys really clearly. I think for me these decks are decks that hold real magic. I have had some strange experiences with Cheryl's decks, experiences where I've pulled a card and I've studied it for a whole week, and through the studying as well, other messages come into play as well. And then also I've had things like I've then put the radio on and the same message has come through the lyrics of a song completely to match what I've just written down in my journal. Things like that, which again is a bit like kitchen sink spirituality, a tarot card, Google searches, a song on the radio, all combining to create a clear message. So I find Cheryl's decks that you can really fall into and get lost in the magic of them, as long as you don't dismiss the often strange artwork as just kitchen sink spirituality, because it really isn't. However, having said all of that, I have to say that out of all of the Cheryl Yambrach Rose decks that I own, this deck, this Mary Magdalene deck, has the least layering of different elements of art combined of any of the decks. It is much more structured just to the subject matter in hand. In fact, the most quirky this deck gets is a unicorn and this portal card, and then there are stars in the background of these. There are no flying saucers, there are no aliens. It's a lot more grounded than Starseed, if you will. Spoilers, I love it. I'm not surprised I love it, because I love Blue Angel's production of their decks, plus I love the artwork. It says on the back of the box, an oracle of love, practical mystics, healers and teachers, Mary Magdalene and her daughter Sarah are archetypes for our time, with one foot in the terrestrial world and the other traversing the higher pathways. They create a balanced woman of unlimited potential. And I think that sentence there sums up Cheryl Yambrach's whole style and art style, with one foot in the practical world and one foot traversing the higher pathways. It's that portal open feel. When you open the box, you've got this lovely guidebook. Now, a lot of people I've heard moan about the Blue Angel box, and I used to think, why are they making the book bigger than the cards so you've got all this gap around? But since I've started taking my cards out doing adventure tarot, I quite like this, because you can get a pen, you can get candles, you can get some crystals down here to take out on an adventure. So I am coming round to this idea of having a little bit of a gap around cards in a box so that you can pack them and go out on an adventure. I've never ever received a Blue Angel deck where the cards have been damaged because of this, so it is what it is. So Cheryl, in the start of this book, talks about who she thinks Mary Magdalene and Sarah are, and this is where channeling through portals comes out the most obvious. In this sentence, she says, my intuitive feeling is that Mary Magdalene, Sarah and Jeshua are hybrids or star seeds who step down into third destiny, the vibration of human consciousness. So you've got that idea of a portal through higher realms, sort of traverse. She talks about Mary Magdalene and Sarah and Jeshua stepping into human consciousness, because they do this so that they can shift the paradigm and move humanity forward in its evolution. And I think that's what we're all seeking on spiritual walks, isn't it? It's about feeling connected to something greater than ourselves, a bigger source of energy, so that we can move forward both personally and in our connections with the world, the environment, Mother Earth, our deities and other people. She says that these three characters in this deck display extraordinary abilities. Even in biblical teaching we see the miracles happening. She said that they display these extraordinary abilities to teach us that we too have potentials if we embrace them, and that's why there was an obsession of European kings to marry into the bloodline of Mary Magdalene. That's where we get to the question of the grail, and you can see on the front of the guidebook and on the front of the box Mary Magdalene is holding a cup, the Holy Grail. Now, I've been studying the Holy Grail this year. I saw the Nantios cup in Aberystwyth, and I had experiences myself around the Grail. It is a fascinating and never-ending treasure trove to dive into. Around the mysteries of Mary Magdalene, the idea is that she is the Grail, the womb of Mary Magdalene, the lover of Jesus, and Sarah, the child of their union, and that bloodline that links back to Jesus is the Holy Grail. She is the Grail. The Grail is a bloodline. I am fascinated with this subject. I've just scratched the surface of studying it. I'm currently reading this book, The Quest for Mary Magdalene. It is completely fascinating. When you start to delve into the stories of Mary Magdalene and the Gospels that never came to light, the Gospels that were hidden, the mystery opens up deeper and deeper. The fact that Mary Magdalene is mentioned 14 times in the Bible, and yet Mother Mary is only mentioned 7. It just goes to show what an important character she was. Mary Magdalene is at the crucifixion, she's at the burial, she's at the resurrection, and before that she's with Jesus throughout his ministries in Galilee as a woman and a companion of Jesus. She's one of the closest people to him in all of his most critical moments. I was incredibly excited to get hold of this deck. Now, it's typical Blue Angel quality. It's absolutely gorgeous matte card stock. It's your normal typical oracle size. You've got a border top and bottom, a title and a phrase underneath as well, and again, having used it for a month, it is the type of deck where you really do need to use it with the guidebook. I would say with all of Cheryl's decks, the guidebook is incredibly important. So you've got the title and the phrase which you get on the card, then you have a short paragraph with the meaning of the card, but then, as with all of Cheryl's guidebooks, you get quite fat-packed few paragraphs that you can explore around the card. It's one of those decks where pull a card and work with it over a number of days, and use Google as well. Really sink into the channeled message of the card and you'll get the most out of it. So I've loved it. It's incredibly usable. Although it's oracle size, I can still riffle shuffle it even with my tiny hands. It is just typical Blue Angel card stock. Slightly sticky on the overhand, but that's matte cards for you. It also waterfall shuffles fine, and I've just loved it. It's really usable. The little guidebook as well is, like I said, absolutely brilliant. All your cards are numbered and easy to find. You've got an introduction by Cheryl herself, a few spreads as well before you go into the double page spread for each card and the card meanings. So a really usable great little deck on a practical basis too. I've loved the mysteries around the Grail and Mary Magdalene that it's opened up. I have loved using it in conjunction to reading this book as well. I think it's a fantastic deck. I've been talking for ages, so I'm going to show you the cards. As I show you the cards, for some of them I'm going to read you some phrases from the guidebook as well. The power of truth is at work in your life, shining through the cracks, ready to burst forth and dissolve the shadows. Your qualities will be honoured and authenticity will rule the day. Look behind the beauty to see what lies beneath. Once found, it is best to be silent about it. Look beyond the obvious paradigm of accepted beliefs. You are a powerful, sacred vessel who can create your own miracles. Acknowledge the truth of who you are. Embody, embrace, and internalize it. Look deeply into the flame. Visualize the purification of fire burning through your deepest negative thoughts, the ones you have kept and held for so long. Emerge from those ashes, knowing you are free to move on in love. So in conclusion, what do I think of this oracle deck? Well, guys, I love it. I think it is an oracle deck that encourages you finding your fullest expression of who you are. It's an oracle deck about growth and ultimately love. But it's also an oracle deck that encourages us to hold our secrets close, to be careful, to keep things safe and protected, which I suppose is fully embodied by the story of Mary Magdalene and the bloodline. It encourages self-expression, and it also focuses on holding on to hope. But above all else, it is an oracle deck that embraces personal power. It encourages you to understand that you too are your own personal grail. You are all powerful, and to embrace that power. I love it. I absolutely love it. And one last word on anybody that thinks this oracle deck is too Christian, and the imagery is very Christian. It has very Christian overtones, of course it does, because of the subject matter. And if you have a wounding through Christianity, which I do, you might think this isn't a deck for you, but I think the story of Mary Magdalene is the story to pour medicine into that wound. This was the woman who was denied by organised religion and the Christian church. The woman denied and hounded and declared the whore of the Bible. A woman whose power was denied, whose place in the story was glossed over and turned into something to take away her power. I've found through the story of Mary Magdalene a healing to that wounding by organised religion. This is the reason why I left the Christian church. And I think it's through her story that I'm finding a way to say I am the Grail too.